to raise your hand at the bottom.
Reactions, okay.
Yeah, Pankaj bhai, start, take over.
Yeah. Before we start the meeting, I request Swamiji's devotees to send their email address as well as telephone numbers, because I want to create a group of our Thursday satsang. So if I have email and phone numbers, I can create the group on the WhatsApp and send the message at one shot. So you can take down my number. I'll post it on the chat here, which you will be able to see after some time. Swamiji, on behalf of all our saint devotees, we welcome you to the second session of Atmabodh. And I think this is because of the technical excellence. We can meet each other, see each other, and hear you. Although we are geographically, there is a lot of distance between us, but that distance has been bridged by the Zoom. You know, so you can now take over and start the session. Hari Om.
Okay, so we'll begin now.
Yeah.
Okay. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwarah, Guru Sakshat Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah, Sada Shiva Samarambham, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryantam, Vande Guru Parampara. In our last session, we did 25th and 26th shloka, and we saw in 25th shloka, Adi Shankaracharya says that Atmana Satchidamshascha Buddhehe Vrittihi iti dvayam Sanyojna cha avivekena janami iti pravartate. Now, as we had discussed last time, it is only in the intellect that the pure consciousness or the pure self, the light of consciousness, gets reflected. So when it is reflected in the intellect, then the thoughts in the intellect gets illumined. Though we saw that Atma or the pure self is infinite, so everywhere at all times, but it doesn't reflect everywhere. As sunlight falls everywhere, but it doesn't reflect everywhere. Only on a reflecting surface it will reflect. Similarly, for this pure self, your consciousness to reflect, it needs a reflecting surface. And within this, the Panchakoshas, the 5 sheaths, the body, sense organs, the pranas, mind and intellect equipment, it is only in the intellect that it reflects. That is a reflecting surface where the consciousness reflects. And then there is a notion. It illumines the thought, and then the notion arises, I know. And that is how this ego or aham bhava or the ego arises there. So, as it is, intellect is actually an inert instrument. It has to be illumined. Like as it is, all the electrical gadgets are instruments which has to be powered by electricity. Similarly, the body, the sense organs, the pranas, the mind and the intellect, they are instruments that has to be enlivened by consciousness. So, Atmana Satchidam Shashya Buddhehe Vrittihi Tidvayam. So, it illumines the thoughts that appear in the intellect. We also saw last time that intellect is just a receiving instrument, like the radio. It doesn't produce anything. So the thoughts manifest there, and then we usurp it as our own. there is a difference between a time gap between the thoughts appearing in our intellect and then we becoming aware of that intellect. As I explained last time, neurosurgeon Benjamin Libet, he proved through experiments that there is a time gap between the thought appearing in the intellect. There is a half a second time gap. So that means this thought is not produced by the intellect. It appears from somewhere and we become aware of it. Same thing was proved in the Max Planck Institute in Germany also. So, Sanyojana. Now what happens is that this consciousness, this pure self, comes together with this inert body, mind, and intellect equipment. And then when it is illumined, because intellect is the only instrument where it can reflect the consciousness, when it illumines that, a third entity is born called the ego. And when that is born, cha avivekena, now these two have come together, and cha avivekena, through indiscrimination. And then what happens is that then I say I know, and then I identify with this body, mind, intellect equipment and say this is I. Like the hot desert, the desert sand and the sunlight falling on it, they both come together to produce an illusion called the mirage. Similarly, the pure self and the inert body, mind, intellect equipment, they come together to produce an illusion called the ego. And this illusory ego is the cause of all our problems. So, it is completely all inert equipment, right from the gross physical body, sense organs, pranas, mind, and the intellect. But intellect has got its own use. We can use the intellect to know what we are not very well. But to know who we have to transcend the intellect itself. Then in the 26th shloka, we saw Atmanaha Vikriya Nasti Buddhehe Bodha Na Jatu Iti Jiva Sarvam Alam Jnatva Drishteti Muyyati. Now, Atma has got no activity as such. It doesn't do anything. So therefore, we made this thing very clear last time that there is Atma cannot be called as active or passive. It is neither active nor passive. So because as regards Atma is concerned, from the standpoint of Atma, nothing else exists other than itself. Other than itself, nothing exists. So there is no question of being active or passive. But on this surface of the Atma, something is projected. So Atmana Vikriya Nasti Na Asti Buddhehe Bodha Na Jatu Iti. And Buddhi is actually an inert instrument. It has no capacity to know unless it is enlivened by consciousness. Now, this ego, which is born out of the illumined intellect, when a thought arises, I thought arises, and it appears as if it is there, this ego thinks itself to be the seer and the experiencer. Seer, knower, and the experiencer, and that is when all the problem starts. Jiva sarvam alam jnatva jnata drishta iti muyyati. So this jiva thinks itself to be the ego and the knower and the seer, and that is how it gets deluded. So we as the self is an entity other than this body, mind, intellect equipment. Now this is what briefly we saw in our last session. Now we move on to a new shloka we'll take up for discussion. Shlok 27 will take it up. Rajju sarpavad atmanam jivam jnatva bhayam vahet na aham jiva paramatmeti paratmeti jnatah chet nirbhayo bhavet. Now here Adi Shankaracharya gives an example how this, when we identify with the limited equipments, there is always a fear. Rajju sarpavad atmanam. Rajju and sarpa. Rajju is the rope, sarpa the snake. So this example is very common and very famous given in our scriptures, Rajju sarpavad. Now, if in the dwindling light or the twilight, where the light is not very clear, it is dusk time, sun has set, and it is not completely dark, but in that twilight, somebody mistakes a rope for the snake, and then all the fear manifests, and that person starts shouting and screaming with fear. And then people come with the stone or stick or whatever to kill that snake. And among them, one person thinks of bringing a torch to see the snake. And then in the light of the torch, it appears that there was no snake, but only a rope. But the illusion of snake created the fear. When there was actually no snake, our mind created the fear, though we only imagined that there is a snake. When we were looking at that illusory snake, we were actually looking at the rope. Every part, every cell of that illusory snake was nothing but the rope alone. But in our delusion, we considered that rope to be the snake, and all the fear manifested. Similarly, actually, nothing else exists other than the self. Now, what happens is that when we are looking at this world around us, all the creation around us, all the manifest world around us, when you're looking at that, we are actually looking at the self alone. When we are looking at the mirage water, when you are looking at the mirage water, we are looking at its substratum, the sand. When we are looking at the illusory snake, we are actually looking at its substratum called the rope. Similarly, when we are looking at the entire manifest world of names and forms, we are actually looking at the self alone and nothing else. Self alone exists in a manner of saying, because we can't look, because it is not an object of knowledge also. So, Rajju Sarpavad Atmanam Jiva Jnatva Bhayam Vahet. Similarly, when we consider ourselves to be the finite ego, then there is a fear. What is this fear? What kind of fear do we have? As a finite entity, we may have so many fears and phobias, but what is the overwhelming fear that we have? There are three types of fears. The three fears are the fear of death, overwhelming fear of death, then the fear of deception, and then the fear of dejection. These are the three fears. So, Jivam Jnatva Bhayam Vahe. As soon as I consider myself to be the Jiva, then all these three fears will manifest. The fear of death will be there. At some point in time, I will cease to exist, that I will die. I was born at some time, and then one day I will die. That fear of death will be there. Then, of course, fear of deception, that is arising out of ignorance, that now I do not know so many things. We have always a fear of unknown. When we do not know something, a new place we are going to say. And that new place, we have never visited. For the first time we are visiting, we do not know the place, we do not know the people. So there is an apprehension, how the place will be, how the people will be, whether they will be receptive or they will be hostile, and so on. So that anything new, there is a fear of the unknown. So when the knowledge is there, we have visited a place, we are visiting it again. Oh, I know the place very well, I know the people very well, I know the society very well, they are very good. Then there is no fear. So fear of the unknown born out of ignorance. So that is the fear of deception. And then the fear of dejection, or fear of misery, sorrow, and pain. These three are the basic fears that we suffer from. And all the other allied fears will be there. But these are the three basic fears. So these fear arises when I consider myself to be this jiva, this finite entity. Then all this fear is there. The moment I transcend this finite entity, I identify myself with the real self, then I am no more limited in the name and form, because the form is limited, and therefore it has got its own limitations of time and space as well as causation. So it was created in time, it will be destroyed in time. It is limited by space to the only body, and at the same time it is also limited by causation, because the causation is a past karma which has given birth to this form. Every form has got a past history of karma. Therefore, each and every one of us is unique, dictated by our own karma. The sufferings or joys and sufferings that we'll undergo in this life, it is according to our karma. So there is a causation. So the limitations of time, space, and causation, and this body is about, and it gives us the fear of death, deception, and dejection. These three fears are there. And therefore, now, as long as we consider ourselves to be the, this jiva, this fear will be there. We have to transcend it and realize our own self. The moment we realize ourselves not to be this body, mind, intellect equipment, but an entity other than that, which is not limited by time, space, or causation, instantly all the fear disappears. So this is what the thing is, that so jivam jnata bhayam vahet na aham jiva paramatmeti jnatah te chet nirbhayo bhavet. As soon as I come to know that I am not this jiva, but I am the pure self, the supreme self, the Paramatma, the absolute truth, then having known that, nirbhayo bhavet, then there is no fear at all. As long as, see, for example, whatever fear or phobia we may have in the waking plane of consciousness or in the dream state of consciousness, we may undergo misery, sorrows, and pain and different experiences in the waking plane and the dream state. As soon as we enter into the deep sleep state of consciousness, no sorrow, misery, or pain, nor any fear or phobia of waking and the dream state ever touch us in our deep sleep state. Why is it so? Deep sleep state is on one side and dream and waking state is on the other side. We can suffer in the dream state also as we suffer in the waking state. We can have fears and phobia in the waking state, and the same thing we can have in our dream state also. But the moment we touch our deep sleep state, it doesn't touch us. The only difference is that there is a temporarily that ego is absent. Though intellect is illumined by the consciousness, but there is no thought to illumine, so that I thought is not illumined there. And when I thought is not illumined, and therefore there is no notion of ego, and we are in a blissful state. The moment we wake up, I didn't know anything. I was in a blissful state. There was no sorrow, misery, or pain. There was no fear, phobia, nothing like that. So we are closest to our real self when we are in the deep sleep state. But that is in ignorance again, because we do not know. If you can wake up minus the ego in the waking plane, we have realized the truth. We have realized the self. Naham jiva paramatmeti jnatah te chet nirbhayo bhavet. So all the problems in the waking and the dream state is because of the ego only. I'll give you an example which I always use. Say, for example, some of us might have experienced traveling in the general compartment of a train, a long distance train. General compartment is for those who do not have reservation. They have bought the ticket and then suddenly they enter the general compartment. So on the general compartment, the origin from where the train starts, we wait. If you are new to this, we wait on the platform for the train to come. But by the time the train reaches the platform, the general compartment is already packed. And then people are standing at the door. We somehow push ourselves. So inside that, we open the door and get in, and then we close the door and we stand at that. We don't allow others to enter. And inside the compartment, there is a full chaos because it is so packed, and somebody is fighting with someone. Somebody has left his kerchief on the window seat, and of course, it may have flown away with the fan. And somebody else has sat on that, and this fight is going on. Somebody has kept his bag on somebody's foot, and this is going on. Finally, the train starts moving. When the train starts moving, when we are filling a bottle with some grain, we have to keep on shaking it so we can accommodate more in that. So when the train starts moving, people start settling down nicely. And then afterwards, they feel hungry. They open their lunch box or dinner box, and then they have their meal. After dinner, then they have to sleep. So somehow they find every nook and corner somewhere, in between the seat, below the seat, in the passage, then near the toilet, inside the toilet, anywhere they kind of space, they try to sleep. And once the whole compartment, all of them are asleep. Observe this compartment. All the fights are over. All the differences are closed. Now all of them are in the egoless state. Nobody is there fighting. Everybody is in egoless state in deep sleep now. Now, as long as this condition is there, there is no issue. And slowly, when the ego starts waking up in the morning, and then somebody discovers that somebody's leg is on somebody's body, somebody's finger is in somebody's mouth, and then the fight starts. You see? So, as long as ego was not there, all of them were in good state. Similarly, if by some trick, if that ego is deleted out of all the jivas, suddenly there will be peace in this world. Nobody will be fighting with anyone. Ego is the main problem. So, na aham jiva paramatmeti jnatah chet nirbhayo bhave. And fearlessness is there. There is no fear, absolutely. There is no notion of any pain, misery, or sorrow. However big a tragedy must have collapsed over us, but as soon as we go into the deep sleep state, it doesn't touch us. So, this is the beauty of being closest to our own self. Though we are closest to our own self in the deep sleep state, it is only a state of ignorance. Now, having said that, we move on to the next shloka, shlok 28. In that, Adi Shankaracharya says, Atma avabhasayet ekah buddhyadini indriyani api deepah ghatadivat swatma jadaihi taihi na avabhasyate. Now, if there is a pot, if we introduce a lamp in the pot, then it will illumine the lamp completely. But that illumination, that light doesn't belong to the pot. That illumination of now the pot appears to be illuminated, but that illumination comes from the lamp, not from the pot. Now, similarly, the Atman, the self also illumines a physical gross body plus the sense organs. Sense organs have the capacity to see, smell, touch, feel, taste, and hear, and so on. It is because of this supreme self, this Atman. At the same time, it also has the capacity to feel, to sense, to know the emotions and feelings and sentiments in the mind. At the same time, it has also got the capacity to comprehend the thoughts in the intellect. It is all because of this Atman which illumines everything. But this light which illumines the experiences of the body, the sense organs, mind, or the intellect doesn't belong to the body, mind, intellect, or sense organs. Like the pot is illumined by the lamp, but actually that light of the lamp doesn't belong to the pot. So this similarly, the illumination, the body appears to be enlivened, sentient, living, only because of Atma, the pure self, expressing through it at all the three levels. We saw this at in the last time also, at the level of existence, knowledge, and bliss. And these three cannot illumine the body, mind, intellect, and sense organs. They cannot illumine itself. They need the light of consciousness to illuminate. Without the light of consciousness, they are jada, they are inert, they are insentient and non-living, unless it is illuminated. And we also saw, I very clearly made the difference between the two, the dead body and a living body. That time we have seen last time that this pure self is all pervading everywhere. So why certain things are insentient, non-living stone like that, and rudimentary living beings like plants, then animals, and then human beings? Why these different forms, manifestation of different forms, right from the absolutely inert and insentient to up to the very living, the sentient, having a full expression of life. So this we saw that this self also expresses to various forms of expression. It expresses to that at the level of existence, or existence and rudimentary knowledge, or existence and full knowledge, and existence, knowledge, and bliss in the human being only. So therefore, these things, though they are all pervading, the self is all pervading, the manifestations have got different levels of expressions. Now, having seen this, we will take up the next shloka for discussion. Now, this shloka is also an important shloka, 29th shloka. This is a very important shloka. This is subtle also. Swabodhe nanyabodhecha bodha rupatayatmanah na deepasya anyad deepecha yatha swatma prakashane. Now, if we have a lamp which is lit, a lit lamp doesn't need another light to see it, isn't it? We don't need another light to see the sun. We don't need another light to see the moon. Similarly, we don't need another light to a lit lamp, which is there, because it is self-illumined. It is illuminating all the other things around it. So similarly, swabodhe na anyad bodhecha bodha rupataya atmanah. So Atma is knowledge itself, pure consciousness itself, pure self, pure awareness itself, and it doesn't need any other consciousness to illuminate, or awareness to illuminate, or knowledge to illuminate. It is self-illumined. Self is self-illumined. With buddhi, we saw last time also, with buddhi we can know everything in this world, but we cannot know the self. And buddhi has the capacity to know other things only because it is illumined by the reflected consciousness. Otherwise, buddhi is also an inert instrument. So with buddhi, we can know everything around, but buddhi can never know the self. Why? Because, as I said earlier, buddhi is a product of ignorance. And therefore, it cannot know when the ignorance manifested, and also the very substratum of ignorance. So, it cannot know. For example, if we enter a dark room, we cannot see anything. Okay. Then somebody brings a torch, we light the torch, we switch on the torch. In the light of torch, we can see all the furnitures in the room. Very good. But can we see the very battery on which that torch is functioning in the light of that torch? We cannot. Our torch is on. In that light of the torch, can we see the battery on which the torch is functioning? No, we cannot see. Similarly, intellect can know so many other things, but this intellect cannot know that which is powering this intellect. Like the battery is powering the torch, and the light is because of this battery. In that light, that battery cannot be seen. That the cell cannot, battery cells cannot be seen. Similarly, the consciousness which is illuminating the intellect to know other things around it, that intellect cannot see, cannot know the very consciousness which is illuminating it. Therefore, self-realization happens when we transcend the intellect, not otherwise. Swabodhe na anyat bodhecha. Bodha rupataya atmanah. Another thing is that we can use a telescope to see the far-off objects, the stars and the planets. Through the telescope, can we see our own self? No. Through the microscope, you can see all the minute particles or minute the life forms, like the viruses or bacteria, something like that, that can be seen through that. But can we see our own self? No. Eyes can see everything, but eyes cannot see itself. What we see in the mirror is the reflection, not the real eye. So it cannot see itself. So I cannot see itself. Similarly, this buddhi cannot know that which powers the buddhi, that which powers the intellect. Swabodhe na anyat bodhecha. So buddhi can never know the self, because self is not an object of knowledge. We have to be very clear understanding we should have. Self is not the object of knowledge. So therefore, only an object of knowledge one can know, buddhi can know. So buddhi can know everything else, but not that which powers it. You see? Another thing is that buddhi has its limitations. Self is an infinite entity, whereas buddhi is a finite entity. So buddhi has got its own limitations. It can only know that which can be objectified. The subject cannot be known by buddhi. Once it so happened, there was a great saint, Saint Augustine, a great Christian saint, Saint Augustine. Once he was walking by the beach, and while he was walking by the beach and contemplating over the higher reality, the absolute truth, the infinite self, the infinite truth, he was contemplating on that. And then he thought he's all alone and walking on the beach and contemplating. But suddenly he realized, he became aware that he's not alone on the beach. There was a boy, a small kid, a kid. He was also there on the beach. And then Saint Augustine started observing this boy very keenly. So what this boy was doing was, he had dug a small hole on the seashore in the sand. And then he had a cup. So he used to run to the ocean and fill the cup with the seawater, oceanic water, and then come and pour into that hole. So Saint Augustine observed this for some time, and then he was curious to know what this boy was doing. So he called the boy and he asked him, "What are you doing?" So the boy told Saint Augustine that, "I am trying to empty the ocean into this hole." So Saint Augustine laughed. How can you empty the vast, seemingly infinite looking ocean into this small hole? So the boy smiled and looked at Saint Augustine and told him, the same way as you are trying to comprehend with your small finite intellect the infinite truth. So intellect has got its limitation. Through intellect we can very well assert what we are not, but intellect cannot comprehend what we are in reality. Now the thing is that in the previous shloka, in 27th shloka, we saw Jiva. As long as we consider ourselves to be the Jiva, then the fear is there, fear of death and fear of deception and dejection, and all those fears are there. Fears and phobias and everything is there. But as soon as that egoless state is there, then there is no problem. Now, actually, as I explained in my last session also, there is no difference between Jivatma and Paramatma. Jiva and the Supreme Self, the finite self and the Supreme Self, I can say like that, there is no difference. The difference is the difference of the conditioning. The infinite self, with the conditioning of ignorance is the Jiva. And infinite self with the conditioning of Maya Shakti is the Ishvara. When the conditionings are removed, there is no difference between Jiva, Ishvara and Paramatma. They are all one. So, similarly, there is no difference between the dreamer and the waker. Dreamer himself is the waker. As long as I am in the dream state of consciousness and having a very miserable dream, I am going through a nightmare, a miserable dream I am having. So, as long as I am a dreamer in the dream world, I keep suffering that nightmare. The moment I become waker, I wake up from that dream, instantly that nightmare vanishes. So, what is the difference between the dreamer and the waker? So, it is of ignorance and awareness. So, as a dreamer, and then when I wake up, I realize that, oh, that was just a dream. I unnecessarily got carried away. It was an illusion. Similarly, in the waking plane of consciousness also, when we realize the truth, then when we realize the self, we awaken to a higher dimension of consciousness. As we woke up from the dream state to the waking state, and there is no difference between the waker and the dreamer. The dreamer himself becomes the waker. Okay, so the dreamer himself becomes the waker. As soon as he becomes the waker, all his problems, his miseries, sorrows, nightmares of the dream state instantly vanishes. So, similarly, when the waker arises to a higher dimension of consciousness, immediately all the problems, all the issues of the three planes of consciousness, the waking, dream and the deep sleep state, everything vanishes and he is into that infinite blissful state. So even if the form is there, the body, mind, intellect, equipment is there, but now that ego has been obliterated and therefore he is not identified with that, he will be in that his absolute self, in the blissful state. So that which illumines everything, that pure self, which illumines his body, mind and intellect, all the experiences of all the three planes of consciousness, the waking, dream and the deep sleep state of consciousness, everything is illumined by the same self. Now he realizes himself to be the self. As long as we have taken this example last time also, as long as we consider ourselves to be the waves, we suffer. We suffer our temporary existence. Each wave is in competition with another wave, and there are different types of waves, long waves, short waves, tall waves, slow waves, fast waves, and so on. And we are in competition with that. At the same time, we are in awe of the vast ocean also. But as soon as we realize that we are neither the wave nor the ocean, we are the water. And in fact, the existence of water and the ocean, wave and the ocean is because of water and not the other way around. The moment we realize that, all the fear that we had as a wave disappears immediately. The fear of getting obliterated by other waves, destroyed by other waves, or getting dashed into the rocks, all that fear vanishes the moment we realize that we are water. So this is how it is. So swabodhe na anyat bodhecha bodha rupataya atmanah na dipasya anyat dipecha yatha swatma prakashan. So therefore the same dreamer is the waker, and the same waker, when he arises to the higher plane of consciousness, the same waker is nothing but the pure self. Paramatma. Now, having said that, we'll take up the 30th shloka. This is also an important shloka. Nishidya nikhila upadhin na iti iti vakyatah na iti vakyatah vidyat aikyam mahavakyahi jivatma paramatmanah. So here now nishidya nikhila upadhi, whatever upadhis are there, the conditionings are there, the conditionings of the body, the conditionings of the sense organs, the conditionings of the pranamaya kosha, the conditionings of the manomaya kosha, the mind, the conditionings of the intellect and contents called the thoughts. So all these are the conditionings. So these can be negated, na iti, neti, neti, with the help of the Mahavakya. In our Upanishads, the 4 Mahavakyas are there. Mahavakyas are the great statement that appears in 4 Upanishads. The first Mahavakya is the statement of the truth. Prajnanam Brahma. Prajnanam Brahma, it comes in Aitreya Upanishad of Rigveda. Prajnanam means we know Ajnana, Jnana, Vijnana and Prajnana. It is like that. So, Ajnana is ignorance, Jnana is knowledge, Vijnana is a specific knowledge, special knowledge, and Prajnana is beyond the knowledge and ignorance. Ajnana, Jnana and Vijnana, that is Prajnana. So it is knowledge of not something. It is an objectless knowledge, objectless awareness. So Prajnanam Brahma, this is the statement of that truth. Then the second statement that is given is it comes in Chandogya Upanishad of Samaveda. That is the Upadesh Vakya, that is called as Tattvamasi, you are that, which the Guru gives to the disciple. And then disciple contemplates and realizes that I am Atma Brahma. This self alone is the absolute truth. I am Atma Brahma. And then finally it comes in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad of Yajurveda that Aham Brahmasmi. That is the declaration of the disciple that I am the self, I am the pure self. Aham Brahmasmi. Now this Aham Brahmasmi, those who have realized the self in any part of the world they may be belonging to any culture, any religion, anything, they have the same experience. Truth is one, so they will have the same experience. When Lord Jesus says, I and my Father are one. In Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 14, they say, I and my Father are one, he says. Hussein bin Mansur al-Hallaj, when he realizes the truth, he says, Ana al-Haq, I am the truth. And in our part of the world, the realization, the declaration, and it is not the ego saying it, mind you, because ego cannot know. When the ego is obliterated in the transcendental state, the words come out, Aham Brahmasmi, I am the truth. So it is the same thing. So how do we arrive at that? Nishidya Nikhala Upadin, Neti Neti Vakyatah. Iti na iti. I am not this, I am not this. Now here we can use this intellect very well. What I am not. So we start with this, that whatever is mine cannot be I. I will briefly tell, I will not tell all the reasons how we can go about this. I will give some indications of that. So here I will say that, okay, now how to go about it? By neti neti, by negation. We arrive at the truth by negation. First we arrive at what I am not. Then after getting rid of what I am not, what remains is what I am. So what I am not, that can be properly determined by the intellect. Intellect can be used to determine what I am not. For example, when anything that is mine cannot be I. This is a very simple thing. Anything that is mine cannot be I. Very clear? So for example, my house. So house is mine, but I am not the house. My house, my car. Car is mine, but I am not the car. Computer is mine, my computer, but I am not the computer. My cell phone, but I am not the cell phone, and so on. Whatever belongs to me cannot be I. Very clear. Now similarly, we also, with reference to the body, mind, intellect equipment also, we say my leg is paining. My stomach is upset. My eyesight is failing. my mind is depressed, my intellect is not working today. So now, what is the rule? Whatever is mine cannot be I. So my leg, my stomach, my eyes, my mind, my intellect, I refer to these as mine. So whatever is mine cannot be I. This is a simple way of ascertaining neti neti. Of course, we have to go. This is the most grossest reason why I cannot be this body, sense organs, mind, or the intellect. This is the grossest reason. Slowly, we have to proceed to the subtler and subtler reasonings, one by one. So we start with this. So I cannot be this body. Now because I refer to this as mine. Then we come to the body also. There are many parts to the body. We can see a man without a leg. That means we can also exist without a leg. One leg is not there, so I definitely am not the leg. Somebody doesn't have an arm. That means I cannot be the arm because he's existing without the arm. Then somebody doesn't have an eye. So without one eye, that fellow is existing. Without both the eyes, he is existing. So similarly, all the different organs, if it is removed, say for example, we can very well survive with one lung, one kidney, half a brain, then 80% of the intestine, 75% of the liver, and virtually if all the organs from the groin or the pelvic region is removed, of course it will not be healthy at all and not be comfortable at all, but the body will survive. You see? So which part of this body am I? If my blood gets toxic, all the blood will be removed and somebody else's blood will be put into me. Am I the blood? Then I cannot be the blood because now somebody else's blood is flowing through me. If both my kidneys fail, somebody else's kidney will be put into me. Am I the kidney? If I was the kidney, that kidney is gone and somebody else's kidney is functioning in me. So which part of this body am I? Those who suffer from epileptic seizures, in certain cases, they remove half the brain. And a person can live literally almost a normal life with half the brain. In France, one lady was operated upon who used to get frequently this epileptic seizures. Her one portion, her left side of the brain was removed. And the doctors thought that slowly she will lose the control of her right side. But then over a period of time, within 3 months, the right side of the brain took over the control of the entire body, including the left side. So the half the brain also can function. So which part of the body am I? Everything is replaceable. You see? So therefore, I cannot be this body. Now we are going one by one like that. Neti neti. I cannot be the body. I cannot be any part of this body, specific part of the body. Heart is spoiled. Some person's heart recently met with an accident. Fresh heart is available. Immediately that heart is put into my heart, my body, and my heart is removed. It is not working. So now somebody else's heart is there. So which part of the body am I? So it goes on like this. Neti neti iti. I am not this body. And similarly, we have to proceed further that how we cannot be the body. And for the body itself, there are so many reasons. As we proceed with Atmabodha, we'll take up those reasonings. I'll give you not 1 or 2, but 14 reasons why I cannot be the body. And therefore, most of the reasons which I can give you why I cannot be the body, very scientific, and it cannot be denied, non-deniable, non-refutable. So those reasons why I cannot be the body, and many of those reasonings will be applicable to the sense organs, to the pranas, to the mind and the intellect as well. Several of those reasons will be applicable to that. So that is how I cannot be this body. So neti neti iti. Nishiddha nikhila upadhi. All the conditionings of the name, of the body, of the sense organs, all these conditionings we have to remove. The external conditionings also we have. We have the conditioning of the name, the religion, caste, creed, nationality, race. These are the external conditionings. Our education, qualification, they are the conditionings. Because when somebody asks us a question, who are you? We start talking about our name. That is another conditioning. Then we give the qualification. That is another conditioning. I am a doctor or an engineer or a professor or whatever it is, and so on. So this is another conditioning. Conditioning of religion. I am a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew and so on. These are conditioning of religion. Then conditioning of nationality. I am Indian, I am Pakistani, I am American and so on. Then the race. White, black, yellow, brown and so on. So all these are conditioning, external conditioning. Then we have our mind, of our sense organs, and so on. So we have to get rid of all this conditioning. Nishidya nikhilo upadhin neti neti iti vakyatah vidyat aikyam mahavakya hi jivatma paramatman. So when we do this neti neti, from the external we are going to the source. We have gone too far out, now we are coming back home. We are going to our own source. Coming closer to our own source, finally Jivatma realizes that it is Paramatma. So Jivatma Paramatmanaha. This finite limited soul itself is a supreme soul. Only the difference was of the conditioning of ignorance. Ignorance of not knowing the self. That veil of ignorance was there. Once the veil of ignorance was removed, same Jivatma is Paramatma. There is no difference. So this is what we have covered today. Now, in these 4 shlokas, and if there is any questions from the previous shloka, if anybody has got, so they may ask the question if some doubts are there. So now we'll have the question answer session. So if anybody has got any questions, they can ask.
आपका फोन आया था?
Swamiji,
Hello.
I have a few questions. Anyway, first, anybody, the present audience, anybody has got any question about the current topic? If they have any question, please go ahead. You are all unmuted now. Yogi bhai, unmute everybody. Karan, unmute yourself.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Karan, you have any question?
No, not today. I don't have a question.
Hello. Hanji.
I think Maharani ji is also here. Yashwari auntie would have a lot of questions for sure.
Let her go ahead. Show us her face.
बिल्कुल वैसे पूरा बिल्कुल थैंक यू जी सॉरी आपको बहुत परेशान किया हाँ
Karan, she has got the question.
Okay.
But everybody is not in unmute mode.
Yogi bhai, unmute everybody.
I have unmuted everybody, but they have got their own devices muted forcefully.
Okay.
Just check whether you are on a unmute mode or a mute mode. If you are on a mute mode, please unmute yourself.
Okay, so any questions?
Swamiji, I'll go ahead with the questions that I have, which was not taken up last time.
Okay, please ask.
They are say elementary at that moment, but I think for the questioner, it's a very important question.
Pankaj bhai, I'm muting everybody and unmuting you and Swamiji.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So go. Oh, okay. Now Pankaj bhai is in mute mode. Okay.
Can you
now ask the question.
Now in our sign group, we have 2 ladies, Hema Mehta and Vijaya Vadhwani. Both of them are lawyers, and they have 3-4 questions.
Okay.
The first question is whether Atma and God is one entity or different entities.
Okay, they are one.
They are one.
Next question.
Next question is, when we say that person is God-fearing person, what does it mean? Fear about our own self? If God and I are the one, then what do I fear of?
Who knows that God and I are one?
Realize so.
So does he have any fear?
No. So this is a question of an ignorant person, consciously.
Yeah, this is a question of a jiva.
Jiva, yeah. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Then
Next.
third one is whether Atma guides mind and intellect to take right decision.
Whether Atma guides mind and intellect to take the right decision.
Right decision.
Mind and intellect is actually guided by their own programming. Okay, this body, sense organs, mind and intellect, they are programmed, so to say, but Atma is not programmed. Okay, so Atma, and we are that Atma, we are that pure self. So this programmed entity, when we identify with that programmed entity, it appears as if we are programmed. If you don't identify with the programmed entity and we identify with our own pure self, there is no programming for us. So otherwise it is programmed and it goes according to that. According to their programming. The body is programmed to self-destruct at the birth itself. Okay, so it will go according to its own programming. So it is programmed to self-destruct at birth itself. It will start modifying immediately from the next moment after birth. It will start modifying itself to meet its ultimate goal of self-destruction, that is death. So it will go on modifying itself. So it is self-programmed. But we are not the body. So that programming is of the body. Similarly, the sense organs also have been programmed. At some point in time, one by one, the sense organ starts failing. So when the eyesight starts failing, we start using spec. And then after that, even the specs don't work, and so on. The hearing also starts failing. It also modifies. So after some time, then we are hard of hearing also. And it goes on like that. They are programmed accordingly. Similarly, the mind and intellect equipment is also like that.
So Swamiji, if Atma, if body, mind and intellect are programmed, then where is the question of free will then?
That is again a bigger illusion. I have written an article on destiny, free will and being responsible, which is about 20-22 pages article. I have updated it also. In that I have given a complete description. We have a freedom. We have a free will. Free will for what? Only to know the self. We have a free will to know the self. Apart from that, the other things are all programmed entities. For example, great realized masters also, their bodies were also programmed. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa suffered from throat cancer. Ramana Maharshi, Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi suffered from tumor. Their body was programmed at birth itself. They were programmed. So it went according to their program, but they were great realized masters. But they were not the body, not the mind intellect equipment. And we have total freedom to know the self. That is the only freedom we have. That is the only free will we have to know the self. All other things will go according to its own programming. We need not have to identify with that. We stand apart and observe. The body also, the sense organs also, the mind also, the intellect also, their contents also. As a witness, you observe that. And certain acts it will do. The speech will come. A great realized master also speaks. But then he speaks spontaneously and not out of any particular selfish motive, because that ego itself is not there anymore. You see, so that is the thing. So these are all programmed, but okay, but we have a free will. We have a free will to know ourselves. That is the only free will. That is what Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi also says. And if once I update my article, I can mail everyone, Destiny, Free Will and Being Responsible article. Everybody should read that. I have given the modern scientific reasoning also, that why there is no free will as such as regards this body, mind, intellect, equipment is concerned. But as regards the self is concerned, we have got all the free will to realize the self. Because it is our own self. We don't have to bring it from anywhere. Even in ignorance, we are also the same self. So therefore, to realize that we have the free will and other things, it will go according to its own programming. So I'll mail you that article in great detail so that everybody can read that and ascertain. And I've given the scientific backing also, the modern researches that have been done on this particular subject, that physics or in other places also, genetics also, and so on. So all the references I have given, so they can read and understand. If there is some doubt in that, then they can of course ask me.
So, Swamiji, when you say programming, you mean to say prarabdha karma?
Yes, prarabdha is the programming.
Yes,
Prarabdha of the
Putna.
body, mind, and intellect. Yes.
Okay. Now the next question is in one minute. In difficult times, we look up to say, "Oh God, please help me." Does
Yes.
it mean there is a supernatural power whom we look up to? But if the creator and the creation is one, then whom we are asking for the help?
So now, from whose standpoint is this question?
Ignorant.
So if it is from the ignorant standpoint, then that ignorant one is not the Ishvara then.
Okay.
So obviously, in ignorance, we ask his help. A supreme reality, we are asking that only from the ignorant standpoint. So a realized master will not do so because he has got no fear. So who is praying? The one who prays is the finite entity.
Okay.
Because he is identified with the limited agents, which is limited by space, time, and causation, and therefore there is a fear of death and deception and dissection, and therefore now he looks up to something, some support he looks up to, a higher reality, a higher entity, and that is how he prays to that. But even that kind of prayer also is helpful. No doubt that is also helpful. It has got some purpose also. Prayer is also very powerful. So basically, when you talk of God also, God is not other than the Atma, and therefore that supreme power you are invoking, in ignorance you are invoking, so that will be also helpful only. No problem with that also.
And the last question is again from the ignorant person's or Jivatma point of view. If Atma is one, why everyone's nature is so different?
Excellent. Atma is one, but the instruments through which it is manifesting is different, isn't it? Electricity is one. The source of electricity that comes into the house is one. Okay? The same electricity powers the bulb also, the fan also, the computer also, the fridge also, the air conditioner also, the geyser also, and everything. So the fridge gives cold water, geyser gives hot water. One electricity, same electricity is powering an instrument, and all these gadgets, all these electrical gadgets, they are different in name, in form, in shape, in size, in weight, in their functions, but all are powered by electricity. So same Atma powers everyone. Same Atma powers everyone, and everyone manifests according to their own characteristics.
Okay.
Like the fan will give air, wind, AC will cool the room, heater will heat the room, and so on. They are all different instruments, but electricity is powering them.
Okay.
So same thing with Atma and all the Jivas. There is one Atma, but there are billions of reflections. Okay? There are 8 billion, about 8 billion reflections of one Atma. One person enters a hall of mirrors, and one person is reflected thousands times in that hall of mirror. So Atma is one, but the forms are so many. So one Atma reflected in 7 or 8 billion people. That one Atma, or all the entities, one Atma only. But they are different forms. So they have got different programmings, as all different electrical gadgets have got different functions, different size, shape, name, and all that thing. But same electricity powers all that. Similarly, same Atma enlivens all the forms, though the programming of all the forms are different.
Okay, so Roy's questions are over, Swamiji, and there is still one question from Nina Nityanand. You know her, Swamiji. She was there when we took the trial, first day.
Okay.
Okay, her question is: we live with duality all the time. Then how do we live with the you and I are one concept?
You can't live with that. We have to live with duality only. We have to live with duality, but then we are still in duality, isn't it? Now we know this, we have this knowledge parokshetvena.
Okay.
Now the scriptures tell us that you are not Jiva, you are Paramatma. Today we read it, Paramatma, Jivatma and Paramatma are one. You are not Jiva, you are Paramatma. Now scriptures have told us objectively we know that I am not Jiva, but I am Paramatma. But I do not have at the moment the subjective awareness of that. Okay. So now what we do is that as a spiritual seeker, what we can practice is that we can practice as a Sakshi Bhava, as a witnessing consciousness. That we are witness to our own mind, the contents of our own mind, contents of our own intellect. We are witness to our own actions also, what actions we are taking. We stand apart from a body, mind, intellect equipment and we observe. So to say, we are witness to that. As we are witness to other people, similarly, we are witness to our own body, mind, intellect equipment. Okay? Because we have not yet realized the self. So living with duality will come naturally to us. We see the world around us. We have duality. We have always lived with duality because of ignorance. Only the ones who have realized oneself will have the awareness of non-dual self, not otherwise. Otherwise, we are all living in duality only. But constant contemplation on this knowledge that we are not the giver, but the pure self, that will help us into transcending the fear of death, fear of deception, and fear of rejection. The fear of death, which is the overwhelming fear, that will transcend just by this. Even this is parokshatvena we know. Aparoksha anubhuti we do not have. We do not have the subjective awareness of I being the self. But at least objectively we know that we are not this body, mind, intellect equipment, but we are an entity other than that. So once we know that, that means at least to a certain extent we transcend the fear. But we have to live in the same duality. Even when a disciple realizes the truth, he'll observe, as long as he's in the physical form, he'll observe the duality between the guru and the shishya. Otherwise, there is no difference between the guru and the disciple. Guru-shishya difference is not there, because the disciple has also realized the truth and both of them are in the same. There is no difference between the two. But that doesn't mean that the shishya will have any disrespect for his guru, because there is no duality. That duality will be maintained as long as there is a manifest form there, though they are all both one. So in the functioning, in the way we function in this world, because vast majority of the people here, we have barely anybody who is the realized self, but otherwise most of us are all in duality, unrealized, in ignorance. So most of the time we'll function in duality only, we believe in duality only.
Yeah. Okay, Yogi Bhai.
Swamiji, there is Mr. Nimish Sharma who wants to ask you something.
Okay.
1 minute, Swamiji. I think he is.
Nimish is in.
Yeah.
In. Okay.
Hari Om Swamiji, can you hear me?
Yeah, Hari Om.
May I ask my question now?
Yeah, ask.
Swamiji, in the answer you mentioned that we should we can witness our own mind, body, and intellect. What I want to ask you is that does that witnessing happen in one go, or it just comes in flashes? Sometimes you can witness, sometimes you can't. And then if the witnessing is happening, Swamiji, then how does one know that it is not a play of the mind and the real witnessing is happening?
See, witnessing will not come so easily. Once we start practicing this witnessing, so because we are so used to being in the duality and having the experiences of duality, we'll consider ourselves to be this only and we'll act in the world like that. The witnessing comes consciously. Okay, I am a witness, but it will come and go. Initially, it will come and go. And then afterwards, when you are into it, you are practicing it over a period of time, you always look at the body as an entity, as an object for you. You don't look at your body as yourself, but rather as an object. So you start looking at the body as an object and its problems also. Similarly, you start looking at the mind and the intellect also, the contents of the mind also, intellect also. You start looking at your sense organs also as an object. As we see, my computer is not functioning properly, so we look at the computer or the cell phone or the watch and things like that. Similarly, we look at the body also as a witness. This body is giving me trouble. This arm is aching, this leg is aching, there is something wrong with the stomach. I have to do something for the stomach. So we are already looking at that in such a way. So then we consciously start developing this, looking at that. Now I have to take the body, like for example, great masters have developed their own ways of doing it. For example, there was a great master in South India called Papa Ramdas. So he used to address himself in the third person. See, different ways it is. So he will not say that I am hungry, because I the self am never hungry. There is no need of any food. So he used to say, this Ramdas is hungry now. He will say Ramdas is hungry, Ramdas is tired, Ramdas wants to sleep, Ramdas wants to take bath. He will not say I want to take bath. The body which is named as Ramdas, he said that he has got the problem, that body has got the problem, I have no problem. So Ramdas is hungry, that I have to feed him now. Ramdas has to take bath, Ramdas is tired, Ramdas is feeling sleepy. So he is to address himself in the third person. If you go to Kerala in South India, which is the place of origin of Adi Shankaracharya, in South India, even in day-to-day language, they address the second person in third person. Say, for example, they will not tell you that, have you taken food? So instead, they will address you in the third person. Looking at you, they will say that, has Nimish taken food? So in the third person, they will address. That is their common in their language. They will address you, you are the second person, but they will address you as the third person. So, and this Papa Ramdas also comes from that South India, Kerala, and Adi Shankaracharya is from Kerala. Their language is in such a way that they address you as the third person. You watch the small children. Small children, they have not developed their ego, and they do not know that I, how to call themselves as I. They do not know I. They only know that they respond to a name, that some name is given to them and they respond to that. So they also start telling that I don't want to. They don't use I. They use their name. Nimish is hungry now. So they also speak in third person regarding themselves, because that I ego is not developed. Papa Ramdas Swami was speaking in a different way. So in that language itself, the third person is there in day-to-day language. So people have devised different ways to have that witnessing consciousness. So we start slowly, maybe in 24 hours in every activity that witnessing consciousness may not be there, but slowly you can develop at all times, looking at the body and thinking of the body as an object other than yourself, mind as an instrument other than yourself, sense organs as an instrument other than yourself. Slowly you develop it, and then 24 hours that notion will be there. The body is there. These are the instruments through which I am functioning. Some things are troubling me, some things I have to rectify, and so on. So that notion you have to develop continuously.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Any other question?
Swamiji, it's
Karan,
Karan, you have any question?
okay.
If you have a question, go ahead.
Karan has got a question. Let Karan ask then. He has to be unmuted, no?
He is unmuted.
No, he is not unmuted.
No, I don't see that mute.
Swamiji, can I ask a question?
Rasheshwari has want to ask a question. Okay, go ahead, ask.
Swamiji, when we are contemplating on this idea of our supreme reality, the real self, a kind of detachment or a vairagya comes in our day-to-day activities, and people around us start thinking we are indifferent, or we are not. We conveniently say the problem is of, like you said, of Raseshwari. It is not of the real truth, the person who I am in reality. So when we live in a society, being a Vedanti, it becomes very difficult for the people around us.
So the what is your question? That
Question is how to deal with this, to exist in the real world, doing the bodily duties of, and yet contemplating at every point on the supreme self, the reality.
okay. The thing is that one who is detached, doesn't mean that there is no love. In fact, those who are detached only can love unconditionally. Remember that. all great saints, sages and masters, they had unconditional love for everyone. Though they were detached, they had total vairagya, but they had unconditional love for everyone. So, in fact, when you are detached, you have got unconditional love, then what happens is that you serve the society in a better way. Okay, you are not indifferent to the society. Because now you have pure unconditional love. You see the entire existence as an extension of your own existence. So, so you see yourself as the entire existence as an extension of your own existence. So in fact, you care for everybody even more than what you would have cared when in ignorance as an individual entity. So having a detached attitude or vairagya doesn't mean that one is devoid of love. All great saints, sages and masters, they were param vairagis, but they had pure unconditional love for the entire existence because they saw themselves in everyone. They saw the entire existence, entire creation as an extension of their own existence. You see? So you need not fear that a sense of indifference would come, or people will think that somebody is going into the spirituality and then they have left all this world, they are so detached and all that. It's not like that. So they are together in the society. In Bhajo Govindam, it is very clearly said, Yogartova, Bhogartova, Sangartova, Sanga Vihinaha, Yasya Brahmani Ramate Chityam, Nandati, Nandati, Nandati Eva. So whether he's alone or in company, it doesn't matter. Whether in yoga or in bhoga, whether in alone or in company, it doesn't matter. He's always in that Brahma Tattva. And he's one with everybody. He enjoys the company also, he enjoys the solitude also. When somebody comes, he's not that, oh, why these people have come. No, he's not about that. He's happy with the company also, and if nobody is there, he's happy alone also. It doesn't make any difference to him. Okay.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Karan wanted to ask the question.
Karan?
Yeah, Swamiji, I have something similar to what Nimish sir was asking actually. Now, Swamiji, first there is something personal. I wanted to ask you, do you tend to forget in a day that Atma exists? Even for 5 minutes, do you tend to forget in a day?
Atma exists? No.
Atma, no. That the whole duality function, does it kick in with you even for 5 minutes in a day?
See,
considering that you have no doubts left that the existence of the self is there, or you know that one is the realized
existence of the self is always there. Okay, there is no doubt about that.
But I was being conscious about it, perpetually being conscious about it, because if I have no doubts left, I have no doubts left about the topic, or I mean, I will not say, oh no, I disagree with what someone is saying on the topic, but I am now listening to you. Now that thing has come in, and you know it is in. But tomorrow for 3 weeks, I'll be working somewhere. I'll be dealing with all kinds of people who have nothing to do with this kind of a subject. And I also go back into the same rut. And then there is, calm is lost, anger comes back, and all these things happen. So is it witnessing? What is it? Is it my perpetual study, or what is it?
That is why I tell you, spirituality is not a part-time job. Spirituality is 24 hours full-time job. It should manifest in every moment, in and through every thought, feeling, speech and action. Spirituality should manifest. It is a 24 hours job, full-time job. It is not a part-time job. It is not that 10 minutes morning I'll meditate and the next 23 hours, 50 minutes I'll act any which way I want it. That is not spirituality. I have to be very careful what thoughts I bring in my intellect, what feelings I entertain in my mind. I have to be witness about that. What words I speak, I have to be cautious always. You see, all that time, alertness. Saudhani ka naam hi sadhana hai. You have to be always alert. You see, so then you are living a spiritual life, and all the actions that you do, that is also important. That same spirituality should manifest through your actions also. Our action should not harm anyone as such, as long as we are doing it for the good for the majority of them. So it should not harm. So like that, the word should not hurt anyone. Our action should not harm anyone. And the type of feelings and thoughts that we entertain in the mind, we are witness to that. We should see that we don't get affected, because thoughts and feelings can be negative also and positive also. So when the negative thoughts and feelings come, it should not affect us. We should be a witness to that. and positive thoughts and feelings are coming. We should not get too much elated out of that also. It is good. So it is a 24-hour full-time job. It doesn't matter. Even if you forget 100 times, you have forgotten it. But the moment you remember it, you start practicing it. Suppose today you start practicing it, in 24 hours, you remember only once or twice to be a witness. And that for a few minutes. And then the other time, maybe 23 hours, 50 minutes, you are not a witness. You should not get disheartened by that. You make a small beginning, and slowly when you start increasing, and it has to continuously go through the mind, intellect. You see, then you are living that spiritual life in and through everything. When you are eating food also, taking bath also, brushing your teeth also, cooking also, doing mundane things also, the whole thing is oriented towards that. You see, and then it becomes very natural to you. And then you start addressing your own body in the third person. Your own mind in the third person. Your own intellect in the third person. You start addressing that and see the fun.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, Swamiji. We'll call it a day today. And before that, before the Shanti mantra, our most senior citizen, Mr. Bagai, will sing bhajan for 2 minutes,
Okay.
and then we will do the Shanti part.
Okay.
Bagai साहब, शुरू कीजिए.
साए कन्हैया, साए कन्हैया, साए कन्हैया, साए कन्हैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया. तुम हो मेरे माँ बाप भैया, तुम हो मेरे माँ बाप भैया, हृदय निवासी कृष्ण कन्हैया, हृदय निवासी साई कन्हैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया. साई कन्हैया, साई कन्हैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया. तुम हो मेरे माँ बाप भैया, तुम हो मेरे माँ बाप भैया, हृदय निवासी कृष्ण कन्हैया, हृदय निवासी साई कन्हैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया. साई कन्हैया, साई कन्हैया, पार करो मेरी जीवन नैया.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bagai. Swamiji, Mr. Bagai requires only 12 years to complete the century.
Oh, 88 not out.
And in our study circle, if he's not there, study circle लगता नहीं है.
Okay.
Mr. Bagai, just get yourself in the video frame
so that Swamiji can see.
Okay.
We cannot see your face. Raise yourself little bit or down your device little bit.
How do I do that?
bring just adjust the laptop.
Is that right?
Screen का laptop थोड़ा आगे अपने तरफ लीजिए.
Yeah, very good, very good.
Hari Om.
He's handsome young man. He is handsome young man of our study circle.
He's actually
Pranam to Swamiji. Pranam to Swamiji.
Hari Om, Hari Om. He's actually sweet 16 with 72 years of experience.
Yes, Swamiji. We appreciate your comment.
Swamiji will do Shanti Part now?
Okay, we'll do Sati part.
Yeah, okay.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Swamiji.
Pranam.
Thank you very much, and Hari Om.
And Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Everybody is home only, so they don't have to Hari Om.
With our home, Hari also is there with us, Swamiji.
Yeah.
You forgot Hari. Hari is with us. No duality.
Yeah, there is no duality.
Yes.
You can't say Hari is with us. Hari is that alone.
Yeah. No, but you said we are at home, so I say Hari is also with us. Like.
Okay.
So, Swamiji, I have at the right hand side of the chat, I have written down my name, telephone number, and requested everyone, particularly this new group, to WhatsApp their telephone number as well as email address. It is there on the chat. Last thing.
Okay, so that they can, so that you can directly inform them.
So that after forming the group, I can directly inform them.
Okay.
Swami, the group, I have given the group name, Being Happy Always.
Okay.
Okay, sir. Swamiji, sign up. Hari Om, Swami.
Okay, so we next Thursday then.
Hari Om.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hari Om, Swami.